are in a very precarious position in this country. We need a political change, but we also need the resolve to resist. Hey, thanks for watching our live stream. I'm the host, David Krayden. In the meantime, have a look at some of these clips and take the opportunity, please, to like this broadcast, ring the bell, or subscribe.
And we're stepping up in every way we can because we know that Russia must win this war. That Ukraine must win this war.
But freedom is something you earn every day.
I don't know that the government currently has fiscal anchors.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need the resolve to resist. Yes, we're live from Ottawa. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will be talking about some very, very important issues today. Things are happening very, very fast at Universal Ostrich Farms, and we're going to give you a full update on that. But also, we're going to start off with some very interesting analysis. You might even call it psychiatric analysis.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need the resolve to resist.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
No. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yes, I'm live. I am live. Oh, so I'm broadcasting a little later than usual today because I was waiting to get an update from Katie Sydney at Universal Ostrich Farms, and we talked about an hour ago, and I will be passing on some vital information about that. But first of all, let's have a look at Mark Carney's very bizarre return to Ottawa. And remember how I used to always say Justin Trudeau treated the National Press Corps, the National Press Gallery, like his communications department. It's like having a second communications department because they were always backing up what Justin Trudeau had to say. And he didn't have to push very hard to get the positive news he wanted. But Mark Carney is facing once in a while a little bit of resistance from the National Press Gallery. And Mark Carney resents that a lot. Let's watch this.
We've seen a group of Canadian journalists' faces light up. You're in the Oval Office. You're going to ask the president a big question.
Let me see you.
You're just like you were not. You're never. You look when you look at me. You're just like, the president's there. It's all great.
What about the pipeline?
It's good discussion. How about this?
All right. Do you believe this? He's jealous of Donald Trump. Clearly, he wants the journalist's face to light up when they see him enter the room. When they see Mark Carney enter the room, the journalists are supposed to just really get excited. Now, apparently, the Canadian journalists were overwhelmed by Donald Trump. Well, that's so funny. But Mark Carney's reaction is weird. Or what?
Is another moment to give a little economic lesson to the leader of the opposition. The Canadian and American economies are closely aligned, and I gave such a lesson to the president of the U.S. yesterday.
If we didn't win this election, if we had these people that were running, that were ruining our country, destroying our country with their open borders and men playing in women's sports and transgender from everybody and windmills all over the place. If we...
I played this yesterday, but you can play this every day. You should play this in the morning when just after you wake up to inspire you. Here's Donald Trump lecturing Mark Carney, who's looking very uncomfortable because he's talking about how in the United States, we're not mutilating children with so-called gender-affirming care. We're not letting men, biological men, compete against women in sports. That's what we're doing in Canada. And Mark Carney, of course, has a very close relationship to the transgenderism, the transgender ideology. His daughter is. So here we go.
Allowed that to go on for another couple of years, we would be, I'm not sure that we'd even have a country.
The U.S. yesterday, I said that what is at risk is Canadian investment into the United States if we do not get a real detail. We will get a deal, however, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the opposition.
$8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get.
All the hyperventilating in the world will not change the fact that the Prime Minister casually said in the Oval Office today, he bragged that $500 billion Canadian investment dollars have left for the States in the last 5 years, and then promised that $1 trillion more will leave in the next 5 years. That'll mean mines closing in Quebec and opening in Pennsylvania. It'll mean mills closing in BC and opening in Washington State, factories closing in Ontario and going to Michigan.
We're working on.
Okay, there he goes, winking again. I think somebody should inform Donald Trump that he's winking behind his back, or actually in front of him. But does Mark Carney not take the president of the United States seriously? Is he playing games? Can you trust anything he says? Mark Carney called Donald Trump a transformational president. Was Mark Carney not serious about that? Is Mark Carney trying to play both sides of the street? Well, that's all he's done since he came into Canadian politics, is play both sides of the street. You've seen him do that. I don't have to tell you again how during the election campaign, which he somehow managed to win on April 28th, he referred to Donald Trump and the United States as an existential threat. And history is moving on. Canada is moving on from a relationship with Donald Trump and the United States. Well, you can take everything Mark Carney says with a grain of salt, because he's full of S-H-I-T. And that is the kind of prime minister we have in this country. So let's have a look at a few other things here, and found this interesting. Alberta Premier to Trump, stay out of our separatist fight. As we reported here on the station, and I think it was Sunday, yes, we had Jeffrey Rath on the program. He is, of course, the legal counsel for the Alberta Prosperity Project. That's the principal mover and shaker behind the Alberta independence movement. Jeffrey Rath was among a trio that was sent down to Washington to meet with Donald Trump's cabinet level staff in confidence. And they were informed that Donald Trump would view with favor an independent in Alberta. Now, I rarely differ with Premier Daniel Smith, but I'm going to tell you this. Donald Trump has every right to interfere in whatever politics he wants, and he's going to do it, whether Premier Daniel Smith approves of it or not. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know why I keep losing this political article here, but that to me is very interesting. She's worried, very worried about Donald Trump affecting the outcome of this great debate in Alberta between the separatists and the federalists. Clearly something's going to happen. Want to move to the Freedom Convoy. I just wrote another article this morning for Blaze Media, which I hope is going to be up in the next day or so, about the results of this sentencing. And once again, as I was sharing with a group of people this morning, of course, there should be no house arrest. There should not have been a charge. There should not have been a trial. There should not have been a conviction, but there was. And a lot of us are hoping and praying that Tamara and Chris would not spend a day in jail as a result of this trial, and they won't be. And I think the only reason they didn't get worse is because a lot of us, including myself, kept this issue front and center and kept embarrassing the federal government and the provincial government. You have to remember this was Doug Ford's case from day one. But we embarrassed the authorities that be in this country who wanted to punish Chris Barber and Tamara Lich for telling the truth, for not accepting the COVID narrative, for fighting hard to get those mandates and those lockdowns stopped. And they did that. You will notice, even though they had the full pressure, the full force of the police and the federal government leveled against them, and they were trampled, literally trampled underfoot and under hoof by police forces, the mandate started to recede right after the Freedom Convoy was crushed. It's almost like they knew. They knew they were on the wrong side of history. Just like the Carney government, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and Ag Canada is on the wrong side of history with the Universal Ostrich farms right now. We'll get to that story in a minute. I want to share this with you.
Been an emotional last little while here, but we're still here, and I just wanted to reach out to everybody and say thank you very much for all the support. I've officially lost control of the inboxes on all accounts. I cannot keep up with the messages of support, but I will do my best on the way home to respond to each and every one of you. I just had to come on here and say thanks. I'm going to sum up what my mother said to me yesterday after court. Son, I would rather have you home safe for 18 months than have you sit in a jail cell for 6. And I agree with her. I can still work. I can still do the farm duties. I mean, there's worse places to be than on the farm, where I have property and I can get some work done, and I can still truck. So again, thank you very much everyone for the support out there. We really appreciate it. It's been quite the ordeal, and I think we've woke a lot of people up around the country, and we continue to wake these people up to the truths of Freedom Convoy and exactly what happened and how the government acted and is still acting. So thank you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you, Chris. And I'm going to show Tamara Lich's response near the end of the show. And I want to sort of close with that, because when I was standing there at the news scrum with Tamara Lich's attorney, Lawrence Greenspan, a reporter from CBC asked him, does Tamara still not have any remorse? And I was just absolutely disgusted by that question, because I'm thinking, remorse for what? And immediately after that question was answered by Lawrence Greenspan, who said, no, she doesn't. She pleaded not guilty, and she would plead not guilty again tomorrow if the opportunity presented itself. I asked the question of Lawrence. I said, but didn't Tamara save lives? How many lives did Tamara Lich save? Did she save lives? And Lawrence Greenspan responded, she probably did. She might have. He couldn't tabulate how many lives. But he said, I know she changed lives. She influenced lives. She affected lives. And a lot of people drew inspiration from her. So Tamara Lich put a post on X in response to this reporter's question saying, no, I have no remorse. I have no remorse for stopping madness, for helping to stop the madness. No remorse at all. Now, I want to move on to the Universal Ostrich Farm. This is a major update. I just got off the phone with Katie Besitne, spokeswoman for the farm. She'll be on the show tomorrow. I'll be on Redacted in an hour to talk about what we talked about, but I'm going to share it with you here right now after I show you this brief clip from Global. This will blow your mind. And I'll tell you why. Let's watch it first.
Go. Right. All right, let's go. A veterinarian hired by the Universal Ostrich Farm heading into the pen, but under restrictions imposed by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
I can check only Betsy, the one sick bird. No samples taken, no walking in a general public of the ostriches. That's all I know.
The CFIA authorized veterinarian Camille Svancara to examine just the one bird, but the farm was pushing for blood samples to be taken from the herd for further testing. In a statement, the agency said no blood or other samples will be collected by the private veterinarian as the farm is still under quarantine as a highly pathogenic avian influenza infected place.
We are a research facility with also that ostriches should not be poultry. Our ostriches are a red meat, flightless animal that are not in commercial chains, and we should be looked at differently.
The farm's push to test the birds again comes after the Supreme Court of Canada paused the call of hundreds of ostriches following a December avian flu outbreak. The court is now deciding whether to hear the case.
None of the ostriches on our farm have ever been tested. They're guilty by association of two positive PCR tests off 2 dead animals in December 2024.
According to the Supreme Court of Canada, all the documents in this case have been filed. A decision could take 1 to 3 months. Many legal experts say it's unlikely the court will overturn the CFIA's call order. Victoria Famia, Global.
Yes. So, did you get that? Supreme Court of Canada might take 1 to 3 months. Yesterday was 2 weeks since the Supreme Court said it would hear the appeal from Universal Ostrich Farms. So you're telling me a minimum of 2 more weeks, possibly 2.5 more months before the Supreme Court decides to rule on whether or not it's even going to hear the case? So I asked Katie about this today, and like I say, we'll have her on the show tomorrow to talk more in depth and more in detail about this. And I said, "What do you make of that, Katie? 3 months?" And she said, "This is a ruse." She's not sure where it's coming from. Maybe it's a ruse from Global News. But this is all about, she said, trying to get the supporters to leave. Because they're going to say, "Oh my God, I can't stay there for another 6 weeks to 3 months. It's just going to take too much of my time. And it's going to get cold there next month." So Katie believes this is all about discouraging people from being on scene and protesting. Now, what's been happening there? This is an incredible story, folks. I was calling Katie last night. I was doing a show with my friend Nico. We were doing the Conservative Corner. So I was trying to find out, I was texting Katie to say, any update? I'm on my friend's show right now. Can you give me any update? And she says, "Look, I'm on a Zoom call with my lawyers," and she talked about charges. And she said, "I have been trying to look at the dumpsters." So I mistakenly thought she was talking about getting new charges because she was trying to look into the dumpsters, which I guess is a federal offense now. But no, she's trying to resolve the initial charge when she and her mother had the temerity to try to feed the ostriches. And she was actually charged for that. And the charge was something like animal cruelty. Yeah, that's how stupid this country has become. So Katie told me 2 things. She's trying to get a charge laid against the CFIA for animal cruelty. She calls it the Canadian Animal Cruelty Agency because that's exactly how they behave. They're a death squad. They're not about caring for animals. They're about killing animals, and that's all they seem to do. So Katie told me this. Grab a hold of your seat. This is incredible. She approached one of the RCMP liaison members. I'm not going to say who it was. In fact, she didn't tell me who it was. And she said, "Is it possible for you to get a head count of the ostriches?" And the RCMP member said, "Well, I'm prepared to put a drone up to get video footage and then view the video footage and see how many ostriches are there." And he said, "I can't give you the video, but I'll look at it and I will faithfully report what I see." Now, Katie said, "That sounds great. That's all we can expect." So before the RCMP even had a chance to do that, the CFIA intervened and said, "Don't you dare interfere in our case. You're not going to find out how many ostriches are left. Katie believes she said, the quote, substantial, unquote, number of ostriches are no longer there. Now, she's not sure the status. She can't go and even feed them. She can't even pet them. She can't even see them. But she believes from reports she's heard that there's a substantial number of ostriches not there anymore. Were they killed? If they're dead, it's through neglect from the CFIA. Well, how is the CFIA disposing of the bodies? Katie believes they might be burning them because she found no evidence in the dumpsters that she was able to look into. Just garbage. But mind you, it would take a hell of a lot to incinerate an ostrich. It would be about the same amount of pressure and heat required to burn a human being. So there is a great mystery here. And we'll be talking about this more. But the CFIA has more power than the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The CFIA is an agency, a government agency, totally off the rails, totally unaccountable, and totally unwilling to search for the truth or even share that truth with the people who own those birds. Now, the Supreme Court, in its order that it would consider the ostrich farm's appeal, said that the CFIA had custody of the birds. That didn't mean custody to kill them, to neglect them, to mete out cruelty towards them. That meant custody to care for the birds in the same manner as Katie and her mom and the co-owners of that farm looked after those birds. That's the standard that the CFIA has to maintain. They're failing miserably, and they should be charged with animal cruelty. And we have got to let people know the government of Canada can end this today. All it has to do is say, stop. The ag minister, when he gets instructions from the prime minister, will call up the CFIA and say, mission is over. Come on home. Don't touch another ostrich. Leave that farm alone. That's all that has to happen. We don't have to wait for the Supreme Court. We don't have to wait for the Supreme Court to come down with some kind of special ruling. Not at all. The government can find a political solution to this immediately. Yeah, and that's one of the dumpsters that Katie was having a look at. That's not Katie there, but that's one of the dumpsters. Now we've got people on scene there. We've got Daisy Media on scene. I hope Chris can get some pictures of what's going on in that slaughter pen, because the RCMP has been told by the CFIA, no drones. You can't fly drones. The CFIA makes that call. I don't believe what this country's come to, where these faceless damn bureaucrats are the ones making the call here. Now let's have a look at some of the incredible footage I have here. Oh yeah, wanted to show this to you first. Read this on my Substack, because I asked the question, how many lives did Chris and Tamara save? Quite a few. And I invite you to watch that. It's doing well. Now, let's have another look here. All right. This is Katie's ex. We're going to have a look at it.
Vet
Let's listen.
was not allowed to take blood, and let's go into the reason why. So the vet said that they said it doesn't matter if all of these animals, remember this, if every one of these animals tests negative, they're still to die. And the reason being is because of that international trade policy between the World Animal Health Organization and the World Health Organization, which takes the directives of the United Nations. Good morning, Tina. And then the minute that any animal has a positive test on a property for HPAI, avian influenza, all animals are to be destroyed. To protect our vet was not allowed to take blood, and let's go into the reason why. So The vet said that they said it doesn't matter.
Okay,
If all of these
sorry, it's replaying, but this is insanity. This is absolute madness. And I want to show a bit of, yeah, Daisy Media has been doing some good work, and Chris Stacy sat down with Katie. Ezra has been there. Saw Ezra the other day at the court. But let's have a look at, I think, a report from Rebel News. Drea Humphrey is still on scene, by the way, which is good, which is very good. So, I'm very, very, very happy that Drea is there. And let's watch a bit of Sheila Gunn Reid here.
Look who the cat dragged in. Hello. How was it?
Good. Oh,
Arduous, I think.
arduous.
How you doing, dear?
And you guys camped in Revelstoke?
We stayed in Revelstoke last night, and it took us 5 hours to make the 2-hour drive from Revelstoke.
Okay.
Just with ferries and delays and stuff. And then we left the trailer over at the municipal campground in beautiful downtown Edgewood.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
right
so
there.
like
yeah.
7 minutes away. And yeah, we're here. And it's changed a little bit since I was here. I found it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah, they got more tents up and
It
more
feels
things
more
coming.
permanent.
And Lyndon's first time at the farm.
Yeah. He's taking it all in.
It will change you. No, it's just joking.
Yeah, no, it changed me for sure.
It does. Yeah, everybody was happy about the news. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not perfect news, but no jail time is great.
Do you know what? These people could use some good news.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's good.
So you can see the media is still very much in evidence there. And the more people that remain on the scene, the better chance we have of saving these birds. And my producer has something for me. So I want to go to my X feed here for a minute because I've got some, and I encourage you to watch that interview between Katie and Chris Stacy. Well, let's have a look at my X feed. And yeah, those again are the bins. And the retired police officer's statement below outlining which animal cruelty laws the Mark Carney and Inspection Can CFIA have allegedly broken. Why is the CFIA ignoring the Supreme Court of Canada by not following normal custody and animal care protocols that were ordered under the Supreme Court stay? Has this not broken the custody part of the stay? And why does the CFIA continue to send blue bins out of the farm property? How many ostriches are still alive? Like, as I said earlier, Katie believes a substantial number of the ostriches are either dead or are not there anymore. Now, here's this statement by a former police officer. Based on the evidence available on video recorded on site and as reported by the farm's own veterinarian, who was permitted access on Monday, October 6, 2025, CFA did not provide medical care required under the Canadian Criminal Code, leading to the death of Spirit, the ostrich, which would lead a person of normal belief that reasonable grounds have been established to have charges laid under Section 445.1A of the Criminal Code of Canada, causing unnecessary suffering. And specifically, Section 445.11 states everyone commits an offense who A, willfully causes, or being the owner willfully permits to be caused unnecessary pain, suffering, or injury to an animal or a bird. Punishment: everyone who commits an offense under subsection 1 is guilty of A, an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 5 years, or B, an offense punishable on summary conviction and liable to a fine of not more than $10,000 or to imprisonment for a term of not more than 2 years less a day, or to both. And as Katie says, this was sent today from a retired police officer. Please share with animal breeders, owners, veterinarians, RCMP, police officers, MLAs, friends, families, and anyone who can make a difference before it's too late. Katie posted that yesterday. How much is this costing? How much is it costing to keep these RCMP officers on the scene? Well, at least $50,000 a day is the estimate I heard. So that's where we're at with this, folks. And this is beyond an outrage. This is clearly criminal. This is clearly criminal. And here's Tamara Lich's post about whether or not she feels she should be apologizing or expressing any remorse. Lawrence and I discussed remorse in a meeting at the office prior to our sentencing hearing in July. I told him I would not and could not express remorse as it would be dishonest and disingenuous. To whom shall I apologize? The thousands of Canadians who stopped planning to take their own lives when the convoy started? To the thousands of Canadians who were able to return to their jobs? Or should I apologize to all the Canadians who can kiss their dying loved ones or have their families over for Thanksgiving? That's something I am never going to be able to do because of the death of two members of my family. There is no doubt some citizens of Ottawa felt afraid, threatened, and terrorized. How could they not when their mayor and politicians were labeling us as an angry mob coming to overthrow the government before we even left Alberta? Do I feel bad for these people? Of course I do. I wish no ill upon anyone. However, it was their very own leaders who lied to them and misled them. There are citizens in Ottawa genuinely afraid of working class Canadians who had never met a trucker or an oil patch worker. I told Lawrence that day that I'll serve 100 years in prison before I'll ever apologize. And that was the CBC reporter who was standing next to me at the news scrum on the sentencing day. And I asked the next question: how many lives did Tamara Lich save? This is interesting. The other day we had Katie on the show. We talked about why the CFIA so invested in killing animals with carbon dioxide. Well, here Katie actually mentions the name of the company. CFIA has been buying CO2 from one company, Ferris Incorporated. The CO2 is being used to kill birds and animals. They seal barns and pump the gas into the buildings. This site lists these contracts per year. Contracts per year. The contracts show CFIA and Ferris Incorporated with 262 contracts from 2022 to 2025. Is the CFIA benefiting in any way from these contracts? This is something we have the right to know. Now, a lot of people criticize Pierre Poilievre for not speaking out about the Freedom Convoy trial earlier than he did. He spoke out after the sentencing. He said it would be a very bad idea to put away these people for 7 and 8 years. And he posted this on October 7th following the sentencing. So Tamara Lich and Chris Barber peacefully protested the imposition of emergency measures that the federal court found to be unlawful. Remember that. And unconstitutional. Instead of pursuing rapists, drug dealers, and other monsters, the Crown sought lengthy prison sentences. Justice Perkins McVeigh rightly rejected the Crown's request and sent Tamara and Chris home to their families. We must get to a justice system that ensures the security and freedom of all Canadians. I wish Chris and Tamara a peaceful and happy life. And here's a statement from Katie. We call for open investigations into all financial and policy connections that drive these decisions and for new policies that test, isolate, and treat instead of destroy. Universal Ostrich Farms will continue to stand for life, for evidence-based science, and for the sovereignty of Canadian agriculture. You see, folks, right now, Canadian agriculture is not under the authority of the Canadian government. It's under the thumb of the World Health Organization and the World Animal Health Agency. WOA. Whoa, it's called. That's who's dictating the rules. This is why the CFIA can tell the RCMP to go to hell. Can tell the RCMP what it can do. So you're telling me the National Police Force of Canada can't put a drone in the air above Universal Ostrich farms to find out how many birds are still left? Because the CFIA is a bunch of jackbooted, authoritarian, Gestapo-like goons who think they can do whatever the hell they please with impunity, and they can do that while they tell police forces to go pound sand. There's something wrong with this country, folks. And this is why I'm standing in solidarity with Katie and her farm and her animals, because as I've said from the first day I covered this story, this is not just about the ostriches. It's about your freedom. It's about your private property. It's about your right to own your livestock. It's about your right to have a dog and the cat in the house without the government sending a jackbooted Gestapo agent into your living room and killing it. You think it can't happen? My God, if it can happen to ostriches, it can happen to dogs and cats. If it can happen to dogs and cats, who's next on their list? What if the government decided the unvaccinated constituted a horrible threat to public health, and the only way to eradicate it was to stamp out the unvaccinated? Oh, you say that could never happen in Canada. Well, let me assure you, it could happen in Canada, just as it happened in the Soviet Union, just as it happened in Germany and other far left or far right countries. It can happen here because we have a government that is on the verge of pushing 4 censorship laws through Parliament. Yes, some conservative members have been talking about these 4 censorship laws, or at least one of them. Pierre Poilievre needs to unequivocally oppose all of these censorship bills and say, over my dead body. This is not the Canada I grew up in. This is not the Canada I want my children to grow up in. This is not the Canada that I want to leave for my descendants. We need action on this file. And thank you for all of your comments, because people are saying, Pierre, stand up for the birds. Pierre, stand up for the birds, because when you stand up for the birds, you're standing up for the rights of Canadians to own their property. When bad men combine, the good must associate. Else they will fall one by one. An unpitied sacrifice and a contemptible struggle. Very true. This is what we need to do. The mission ahead of us is clear. And we're going to fight this battle every day of the week. Here's a rock girl. If we lose free speech, we lose everything. Rise up. Rise up, people. I'm not going to tell you that this is all somehow going to resolve itself. You know, it would have been very easy for Katie to just give up. It would have been very easy for her family to give up and just say, there's nothing we can do about this. I guess it's a fait accompli. I guess the government's just going to win. It's in the cards. But they fought back. And every day they get a bit stronger. Every day more Canadians are coming on side and realizing this really is Freedom Convoy 2.0. This really is another example of the people rising up. How many lives did Chris and Tamara save by helping to shut down mandates surrounding a toxic, untested, and deadly vaccine? Heidi responses, mine. I wanted to off myself because I was ostracized by not getting the jab. God bless them. And God bless you for saying that, sharing that, Heidi. That was one of the most popular posts I've put out recently. And I think it's simple. It's right to the point. Never mind expressing remorse for saving people's lives. That's ludicrous. And Katie, don't ever express any remorse for standing up to the CFIA and calling this the Canadian Cruelty or Animal Cruelty Agency. Don't ever regret or express remorse for demanding that your ostriches live and that your private property is your private property and that you still have rights. Keep Katie and her family in your hopes and prayers. These charges against her should be dropped because she was only trying to feed her ostriches, her birds. And we have to move beyond this. If anybody needs to be charged, it's the CFIA. And I think there's a very good case for that. A very good case for that. Thanks for watching today, folks. I just want to show you my merchandise page, and I'll be back with some concluding remarks. Yes, have a look at the store. I think we've got some great merchandise. We've got some great stickers that just came out, some of them related to our struggle. And have a look at my Substack that I put out yesterday. How many lives did Chris and Tamara save? You know, they went through 2 years and a month, exactly. The longest mischief trial in Canadian history. I'm sorry, that should never have happened. That should never, never have happened. But as I said earlier, thank God it wasn't worse with their sentencing. And I think if a lot of us, including myself, have been putting this issue out there every day, at some point, I was putting this out every day, reminding people, remember Chris and Tamara, remember them. And I wrote, I think, 40 articles for the Epic Times, for Human Events, for the Post Millennial, for my Substack. News articles and opinion pieces during that 2 years and a month. I'm proud of that accomplishment. And I'm proud that I think I helped keep Chris and Tamara out of jail, as some other people did who covered this. A lot of broadcasters didn't cover it at all. And that is disgusting. Why didn't they cover it? Well, I have my own ideas about that, because some official sources didn't want it covered. It was too radical, too extremist. But I'm proud of the fact that I did. So I'll be on Redacted at 4:30. I encourage you to watch Redacted anyway. It's a great show. And I'm on at least once a week. Katie's been on 2 or 3 times now. And I think she'll be on again, because I think we're going to get through this week anyway, before there's any word from the Supreme Court. The problem, of course, the challenge is to stop the CFIA now from killing any more birds, because they'll get their way one way or another if they're allowed to continue to mistreat these animals. Let's put the pressure on the CFIA. Let's put the pressure. Let them know how you feel. Let's do that. Thank you for watching. God bless all of you and Godspeed to all of you. I'll be back again tomorrow.